Welcome, YouTubers. Lawn Smoke, Professor Walker here. And today's background video is on prior drug use and qualifying and getting hired as a police officer. So, a very frequent question I get in my email is something about using drugs, different illegal drugs, or even prescription drugs before you apply to be a police officer and how that's going to affect you. So, that's actually a pretty complicated question with lots of different potential answers. But just some basic rules to go by, and hopefully this will answer whatever particular question you have, is that rule number one is you want to have as much what we call time and distance between the use of some sort of illegal substance or even legal prescription drugs, which are narcotics or things that could be mind altering or cause some harm or have potential for addiction. You want to have time and distance between those events and when you apply to be a law enforcement officer. A good rule is somewhere between 3 and 5 years, so that by the time you apply to the police department, it should be at least 3 and maybe preferably up to about 5 years from the last time you took, especially any sort of illegal drug. And that upsets a lot of people, gets people, disqualified because, they're only a year from the last time they used and they don't understand because they think, well, gosh, it was a year ago. That was so long ago. A year isn't very long. 3 years is a little bit better because within a year, it'd be very common for somebody to have some sort of drug or alcohol problem and then to abstain for 6 months or a year and then fall back to that. So they want to see a longer stretch of time, a longer period of time that you haven't used any sort of substances. Okay, so that's the first part, the time. The second one is how much. And that's going to vary from agency to agency. But one thing that makes you very safe and secure is if you were using that illegal substance in a very experimental way. Like you only did it a couple, 2 or 3 times. You start doing more than that. Now we're going to start to say it wasn't really experimental. Maybe it was more recreational. And if it was every day over a period of time, now it's past recreational, and now we could probably consider that you're abusing that drug, and maybe you even have some sort of dependence or addiction. I've had people ask me, can I become a police officer? I smoked marijuana for the last 2 years or 3 years, and but I want to quit and become a cop. That's not going to work. You can't have used a drug continually, almost daily, for lengthy periods of time. That they're not going to allow that. Your drug use is going to have to be considered very experimental or recreational, probably at the most. Now, so that's question number one, was about time. So we want to put time 3 to 5 years. Two was about like frequencies. How often have I used it? And then the third question that comes up is some form about, like, say, what type of drugs. If you've only used marijuana, you're probably going to be pretty safe as long as you got some time that's gone by since you used it. You didn't use it excessively. You weren't an everyday type marijuana user. But when you start getting into other drugs, cocaine, methamphetamine, designer drugs, ecstasy, LSD, using prescription drugs inappropriately, without a prescription, OxyContin, Norco, Vicodin, all the myriad of stuff. You're huffing paint, huffing nitrous oxide, which is sometimes pretty common with younger high school kids. If you're doing any of those type of drugs, that's going to cause more of a problem for you. It's going to be unlikely that an agency is going to hire you if you've done some of those drugs. You may get by at some agencies with a one-time use or twice of a drug like cocaine, maybe. But pretty much any more than that, or any of those other drugs, using heroin, meth, anything else like that, and that's going to disqualify you from a position in law enforcement. And it's kind of harsh, and I get that, and people will email me and tell me, I just don't see how that's fair because, I'm such a good person, and that was a different person back then that used those drugs. But you have to look at it from the perspective of the law enforcement agency. Let's say they hire you and you had a background where you used some drugs that were a little harder than marijuana. You used cocaine, you used smoked methamphetamine, or you did heroin, and it was a very brief, period. You did it 2 or 3 times. Well, as a police officer, you're going to have a lot of access and exposure to narcotics, to people using narcotics, and because of that, you're going to be at higher risk because of your prior use that maybe you would abuse that drug in the future. You're going into an occupation that has a lot of stress to it. A lot of mental trauma can happen in law enforcement. You can see a lot of things the public doesn't see. So we don't want to put somebody into that position as a law enforcement officer already with some substance issues. Even if you wouldn't call it substance abuse, you may be more likely to abuse based upon that past. So if that makes sense. So that kind of encompasses a lot of the drug questions. The first one, right, being the time. You want 3 to 5 years from your last usage. Your frequency of usage. You want it to have been very rare, minimal usage. And in most police agencies, it's restricted to marijuana usage. And if you get into other drugs, other narcotics, you're more than likely going to be disqualified. Although there are agencies that will take you and will hire you with a once or twice usage of a narcotic. And what you definitely need to do is, if you have issues in any of those drug categories, you need to contact somebody from the agency you want to apply with, somebody who does their background investigations. And you need to be upfront and honest with them about, hey, this is my history, this is where I'm at. Would I qualify, and is it possible for me to be hired? They're not going to tell you they're going to hire you, but it would be possible with this sort of drug use. And see what kind of answer you get, because some agencies are going to have it very clear in a background. You look online, they'll have some sort of background requirements and automatic disqualifiers, and some will be very clear: any usage of a hard narcotic, automatic disqualifier; any use of marijuana beyond 3 times, 5 times, whatever, automatic disqualifier. And so you want to check that out. Okay, the bonus issue, which comes up with some people in this, is what about medical marijuana? I've been prescribed medical marijuana. I have a marijuana card. The state I'm in now it's legal to smoke marijuana. Why can't I pass the background? Marijuana is still illegal federally. So you're still breaking federal law, even if your state has legalized it, isn't doing any sort of enforcement, or if there's medical marijuana. And because of that, you're still breaking the law. That still will run you afoul of a police background process. Also, because marijuana, and don't want to have a debate on this, but marijuana is viewed by police agencies as a harmful product, a product that they don't want their officers consuming, because I don't think anybody would be too comfortable with a police officer showing up at their door and they reeked of marijuana. Because of that, agencies are not really embracing, hey, the marijuana is legal, this person has a medical card, well, we'll still hire you. So as of now, in 2018, when this video is made, and I'll update this as things change, a medical marijuana card, or if marijuana is legal in your state, that still will not allow you, you're not going to be allowed to use that and still become a police officer. All right, that's it. It's Professor Walker with the Law and Smoke channel. And if you have any further questions, put a link down there to my email address. You send me a question. Make sure you please subscribe to my channel. and I will answer questions that you have. I get backed up. It could take me a little while to get to your question because I get a lot of email, but I will eventually respond. All right, that's it. Till next time.